So hi guys, we've learned of the empirical formula of compounds in a previous lesson, but in this lesson, we will discuss it in depth. The empirical formula of a compound is the simplest whole number ratio that represents the atoms present in the compound. It is different from the molecular formula of the compound, which gives an actual representation of the number of individual atoms present in one molecule of the compound. Let's try to understand the difference between both formulas. To do this, we'll use a sweet-smelling organic compound, benzene. Benzene has a molecular formula of C6H6 because there are 6 carbon atoms and 6 hydrogen atoms in one molecule of benzene. On the other hand, the empirical formula of benzene is a ratio of the number of carbon atoms to that of hydrogen atoms. So, since there are 6 carbon atoms and 6 hydrogen atoms, then the empirical formula of benzene must be CH. One might ask, why do we need to study the empirical formula of a compound? Well, the thing is, the empirical formula of a compound helps us determine the molecular formula of an unknown compound. You see, when one is tasked with the identification of the molecular formula of an unknown compound, one has to start by performing several tests to determine the elements present in the compound. These tests are collectively part of an analytical procedure called qualitative analysis, and it tells the chemist the exact elements present in the compound. After determining the elements present in the compound, the chemist proceeds to determine the empirical formula of the compound. He does this through the following steps. Firstly, he determines the percentage composition of the individual elements present in the compound. Secondly, he divides the percentages by the relative atomic masses of each of the elements to obtain the number of moles of each element present. Thirdly, he obtains the mole ratio of the elements in the compound by dividing through by the smallest number of moles. Lastly, he extrapolates the mole ratio and uses it to obtain the empirical formula. Now that he has the empirical formula of the compound, he equates it to the predetermined molecular weight of the compound and obtains not just the molecular formula of the compound, but also the name of the compound. You too can determine the molecular formula of a compound from the percentage weights of its elements. In subsequent lessons, we will apply the same steps used by this chemist to tackle this type of problems. Until then, remember that the steps needed to determine the empirical formula of a compound include: determine the percentage composition of the individual elements present in the compound. Divide the percentages by the relative atomic masses of each of the elements to obtain the number of moles of each element present. Obtain the mole ratio of the elements in the compound by dividing through by the smallest number of moles. Extrapolate the mole ratio and use it to obtain the empirical formula. I hope to see you soon.